Hey, it's Don Williams with today's episode of the Proven Entrepreneur Show. Such a treat for you today. Good friend of mine from just down the street, well, down I-35, a couple hundred miles. That's not very far in Texas, though. So I have Justin Wren. Justin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate it. And it's good to be neighbors.
It,
That's considered neighbors here in Texas.
it kind of is. I mean, I would go down there for, Franklin barbecue for lunch,
Yeah.
and that's just kind of how we are. So, so thrilled to have you on today. Now, Justin, I think you are a philanthropreneur, and I don't even know if that's a
Hmm.
word, but,
Hmm.
or maybe a social entrepreneur or a humanitarian entrepreneur. Hey, well, I don't know. Justin, tell us what you are and what you do.
Yeah, I'm a former fighter turned humanitarian, or I guess I'm just a dude that wants to put love and compassion in action in sustainable ways, and do that many ways here, but in the biggest way over in Africa, or the most biggest or deepest, most meaningful way to me is for my second family, a hunter-gatherer tribe, the Pygmy people, who I got to live with for more than 3 years. But my longest time there was 1 year, and it built up more than 3 years in the last 13. And I just love it. We do a whole community development. Yes, we started with water, but even before drilling water wells, we started with land. They needed to have the land rights and land ownership legally in their name before we could drill them a well, so that we knew that it was going to be theirs long term, right? And so, but now we're building a hospital and a school, and I got to meet you through Ben Hansen, my friend who I had a dinner party with him last
No,
night.
no, no, my friend, Ben
Our
Hansen.
friend,
Oh,
our
our
friend
friend
Ben
Ben. Okay,
Hansen.
okay.
Yeah, our friend.
Yeah, okay. Our
But if
friend
you want to
Ben
wrestle
Hansen.
for it, I got it.
No, I don't think I want to wrestle. No.
Yeah, but I guess my journey's one from fighting against people to fighting for people, and so I did that professionally. MMA, UFC, was on the Ultimate Fighter TV show, and it didn't fulfill me like I hoped it had. And so I grew up getting very heavily bullied. That's why I found MMA. I wanted to fight myself, or fight my way out of bullying. And I, with some sweat and a lot of sweat and some hard work, but really great coaches, mentors, even a second father figure to me, them pouring into me and me listening, being coachable, it worked. It worked pretty quick. From 15 years old stepping on the mats, to 18 years old being national champion, to 19 years old being a professional heavyweight MMA fighter. Out of high school, went straight to the Olympic Training Center. From the Olympic Training Center, jumped into MMA. Was the youngest guy at the highest level of the sport, meaning I was 19 years old, and the youngest guy I've ever fought still to date, he was 28 or 29 years old. So as a young gun in the kind of older man's division of heavyweight. But by 23, I was ready to kind of get out of it, because I was going through addiction, depression, 2 suicide attempts, 2 times at treatment. And when I found purpose through service, the most remarkable stuff started to happen. And that started to snowball until it kind of just did an avalanche of good in my life and the lives around me. And so I wanted to keep pursuing that. I left fighting for 5 years. I came back to fighting for a purpose, to raise awareness, to raise funds. I fought for about another 5 years, so that if I fought one, got the microphone, I get to tell people not my story, but their story, and rally a mass audience around a cause that I truly believed in. And
I
so
love
I
that.
got to link those up for a while. And recently I stepped back out, and because of our friend, Ben Hansen, who's been my, I would say my business coach, my fundraising coach, he, saw that my time was divided in many ways. Training full time makes it hard to go all in on fundraising or meeting with people, or you're tired at the meetings, or you're training 2 or 3 times a day. So I officially retired and threw myself at being what I was acting as, the founder, spokesperson, executive director, or CEO of the nonprofit. And because I kind of, went all in, nearly miraculous stuff has happened in the nonprofit because of it. And I've learned a lot in entrepreneurship from an entrepreneur in EO and being around y'all. And we recently had a fundraiser, and a lot of the EO crew from Austin showed up, but even Dallas and Tulsa. Yeah. And we raised a lot of funds. We raised a lot of funds at EO Eccentric that you helped get me on stage for. And then afterwards at an event, our first fundraiser ever, we raised $292,000. And we hit our $1 million matching gift. And because of that, they committed another $1.5 million in a matching gift.
Amazing.
And so the 1 million became 2, and we've raised $2.5 million this year, which for a nonprofit that has a small team, 3 people here stateside, but 60 overseas.
Yeah.
It's been incredible to like level up and learn how to ask. And I would tell the story, and what many people would say, or I would hear, was a really powerful way, but I wouldn't make an ask. And so Ben has been really working that kind of asking muscle. He calls me the Rainmaker. I even have 2 awards on my desk from him. This one's a knife that says Rainmaker on it. Another's Raise the Bar Award, and that's from Profit Doctor. And from his entrepreneurs, like, he had to coach me into even how to let people go, right? Like, I'm a fighter, but I have a little bit of a bleeding heart. And so I've had to do that a couple times with his coaching, and but it was the best decision for the mission, the vision, and the people we serve. And so once I saw it through that lens, it was an easy decision to make.
Awesome. Okay, so tell us the name of the nonprofit.
Yep, it's called Fight for the Forgotten.
Fight
so
for the
I'll tell you
Forgotten.
something I didn't get to say on stage. When I met the Pygmy people, the Mabuti, the Efe, the Batwa Pygmy people, they said everyone else calls us the forest people, but we call ourselves the Forgotten. And because I had been a wrestler, fighter, like I had been wrestling some of the men 1, 2, 3 at a time, and just having fun, being playful. They helped come up with the name. They were like, can we call this Fight for the Forgotten? And so that's kind of their rally cry. My rally cry is let's fight for the forgotten and make sure that, they have a fighting chance to where they can not just have a handout, but a hand up, a long-lasting solution where they get to stand on their own 2 feet, have their shoulders back, look people in the eyes, and be proud of the work they're doing to come up out of poverty that really they didn't choose. It was forced upon them. And I mean that in the most literal sense. A lot of people are like, oh, if they're poor, it's their circumstances, they're not working hard, or they it's because of what they're doing that they're experiencing it. But they've been hunter-gatherers for at least 60,000 years, maybe 100,000 years. And their way of life has been systematically dismantled over the last few decades, or they've been banished or evicted from the rainforest, their ancestral home where they feel connected to their ancestors, to God, to nature, to everything. They were the protectors of the forest, the people of the forest, and the forest provided for them, and then they're ripped away from it. So no, they were literally forced into slums or into really dire circumstances with no clean water, calling people master, like literally becoming slaves, all sorts of brutal, terrible abuses and human rights atrocities that they're going through. And so to see them coming up out of those circumstances on their own volition, but they're just disconnected from the resources and the opportunity. So as an organization, we say we're a charity, we're a nonprofit, we're a 501c3, but our mantra is also like opportunity is greater than charity. Charity can be great, but opportunity is always better, especially for those facing poverty. They don't want the handout. They want an opportunity out, and they're willing to do whatever they can.
Teach me, show me, how can I do it? Yeah, love that. And I'm fortunate, been to Africa, and I think if certainly if you're if you're U.S. and you've not been to Africa, it's hard to kind of comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
It's a magical place, but it's
Yeah.
totally unique on all of the earth, and abject. Been fortunate to
Yeah.
travel all over the world, seen horrible poverty everywhere. Probably the worst that I've
Yeah.
ever personally witnessed was on the continent of Africa. So,
For sure.
many entrepreneurs, an entrepreneur starts a company, they build a company, they win, they lose, they succeed, they fail, and maybe one day they have an exit, and
Mm.
it's very common at that point for them to kind of wonder, what is all this for? And
Mm.
and there's even a great book about that called The Second Mountain, where they basically go find
Mm.
a cause, but a cause that matters more than just dollars and jobs and commercial economics. And so, when I first met you and when I first listened to your story, what struck me was that your search for the second mountain, so to speak, was really accelerated. Okay. And so I'm guessing there's a faith component in that. Care to
Yeah.
share? Am I right? And care to share
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
that?
Sure. I would say we don't necessarily lead with it as an organization, but for me personally, like it's definitely there and it's a foundation and it's what I'm rooted in. And I would say God loved the hell out of me, blessed the mess out of me, and man, saved my life literally from addiction, depression by my own hand, spared me from 2 suicide attempts.
Mm,
And because they were real deal ones, maybe the first one was like enough to do it to a normal person, but a big guy, maybe not. And the second one, like they said, it doesn't matter who you are. It's 100% a lethal cocktail. So for me to wake up and me to
mm,
walk out onto the beach and get into the water of the ocean. I took a one-way trip to Tulum, and when I knelt down in the water, all I felt was shame. So much
mm,
shame. I felt like a failure. I felt like a disappointment to my mother. Like, what am I doing to my mom? And also selfish that someone would have discovered my body and experienced that trauma in the hotel room. Like, who was I going to do that to? Like this just innocent kind of bystander doing their job. Right. But something shifted, and I would people have said all sorts of different things. It was my higher self, it was this or that, and for me it was a whisper in my soul from God saying, like, be grateful for that beating heart in your chest,
mm,
be grateful for that breath in your lungs. And then it was one more thought, intuition, that felt like it was outside of myself. um, Open your eyes. And man, my eyes were welling up with tears. I was closing my eyes hard, and tears were streaming down my cheeks. And it was open your eyes. And right when I opened my eyes, I saw the sun pop up on the horizon, watching the most beautiful, epic, majestic sunrise of my life. And it shifted, it switched from like shame to gratitude. And as the sun kept inching up higher and higher, there was more and more gratitude, and like realizing, like, I don't know, like it should have been, and it was one of the worst moments of my life, but it quickly turned into one of the most impactful moments of my life. And the next part wasn't easy. It was hard, really hard to get clean and sober, but to have this hope of like, oh, wow, like, I shouldn't be here. Like, I'm living in the bonus rounds of my life. And so with the time I do have left, I better commit to doing something with it, because it's time I didn't expect to have. And um, I don't know. I hope that makes a little bit of sense, but it was definitely a blessing to be spared, and then to have the opportunity to get well and to get sober. For me, like, other people don't have to do it, but for me, a guy like me, yeah, I have to. Um, and I want to. It shifted from this like curse or burden of of having to get sober, or even the burden of, now I'm labeled as an addict or an alcoholic, and I don't want that, I'll figure it out on my own. Like, for me, my experience, oh, look what I have in my I literally have another year sober chip in my pocket that Ben got for me to celebrate. And he
Awesome.
gave that to me last night. And um, I don't know, it became this opportunity. Instead of seeing it as the biggest burden, why not let it be the biggest blessing? In a way to tell a story. And then now going, at least for me, like people's stories have always been the thing that changes my life the most. And seeing them take action and learning from their actionable takeaways or steps from their story. But man, like now there's these people who have one of the most ancient stories on earth, and literally they call themselves not just the forgotten, but like they call themselves an endangered people group in the name of endangered species or rainforest preservation. Like they've become an endangered people group that is on the verge in the next decade or two of like no longer existing and like losing their culture, losing their stories, losing their heritage, losing their tribe. It's like, man, if can my story potentially help their story, and can we unearth like each individual's personal story in a way that like is just something beautiful and epic that we don't lose and that we
Yeah.
can celebrate. So I'm going all over the place there, but
I,
it's yeah.
I just want to add a couple comments.
Sure,
Okay.
please.
So one, to me, stories, and I don't know if you know this, but I've written 8 books, published
No,
6
I didn't
books.
know that.
I have
I knew
stories.
you read a couple, but I didn't
Yeah.
know that many. Wow.
I have words. My wife would say, Don has words. And I think stories are the easiest form of learning for people to
Hmm.
digest because
Hmm.
it's not you should, you ought to. It's like, let me tell you my story. Maybe you hear something in it that resonates with you.
Hmm.
And then I want to go back to the transition on shame to gratitude.
Yeah.
So it is scientific that humans perform at their very lowest level when they express or experience fear or shame.
Hmm.
Scientific fact. I didn't make that up. You can look it up. Google will confirm. ChatGPT will confirm. Okay. It's just the way it is. On the other hand, humans perform at their very highest level when they express or experience gratitude.
Wow.
And so 8 or 9 years ago, I'm in Thailand. I'm listening to this electrical engineer talk about energy, human energy, and she's sharing this thought with me. And I literally come back and I'll put it here. This is Gratitude Stories from Our Hearts, 24 co authors who share 25 stories, and it's a journey to gratitude. And for the audience members today, I'll put a link where you can download it for absolutely for free. Or if you want to, you can go buy it on Amazon. We give all money above the publishing cost to St. Jude because if we can
Awesome.
help one sick kid, I don't have to make money on books. I have other ways to make
Yeah.
money. So, but I love that. And the instant, I think that all progress starts with a yes. And
Hmm.
so when you accepted that challenge to open your eyes, okay, it's like a complete about face. Okay.
Hmm.
Now catastrophe is sometimes avoided with a no, but progress requires a yes. And
Hmm.
you said yes and made that progress. And so thank you for
Yeah.
sharing. Thank you for sharing that with
Yeah, of
us today.
course. Well, just to say on the St. Jude's part, just because I would love people to go buy your book. I'm going to go buy that book because I'm a monthly donor of St. Jude's. Yes, I'm a nonprofit founder, and anytime I speak and get a speaking fee, I give to Fight for the Forgotten. But that's another one that's near and dear to my heart because my start on this journey saying yes to purpose through service started at a children's hospital. It was in
Mm.
Denver. It was at the Children's Hospital, Colorado. And it was in a room with a kid that was a fan of mine from The Ultimate Fighter. And his father reached out and it changed everything. But I think as people, like we all want to kind of have this purpose to live for or need this personal progress to be being made. And then we need like community around us. And y'all have that through EO and through your business networks and with your clients and your families and friends. I had that through fighting with my training partners. Like it was like kind of this warrior tribe, and we would back each other up, be in each other's corner whenever they're fighting. but the whole way up until it. But whenever I separated from it, well, when I was going through addiction, that cut me off from like truly having it. I had training partners, but I didn't have tribe in community. And it's kind of because I dimmed the lights, right, mentally on my faculties. But whenever I got to Africa, here I meet this ancient tribe that lives in community in such a beautiful way. I think anthropologists have said they're the most present. I saw one article, I think it was The Guardian, saying like they were the best fathers on earth or something similar to that. Because these dads, these fathers who are hunter-gatherers and providers and protectors of their tribe and community, but even as a dad, they would hold their infants for 50% or more of the time. And they're the only people group ever documented to do that. And I like stumbled upon it, right? And I didn't have the best, I won't go into that too much, but I didn't have the best relationship with my dad or the men in my family, at least my father's side. So whenever I got there and I just witnessed it, you know, and then got accepted into the tribe, adopted into the tribe, given multiple names. A child was named Mabuti Mongbo Justin, which literally means the Big Pygmy Justin.
So hang on the Big Pygmy. I got to jump on that before I forget.
Sure, please.
So it's impossible for the viewing audience to get an idea. You know, I'm 6'1". Okay,
right.
You are 6 what?
Let's say 3. Yeah,
6'3".
My Topps card says 6'4", but I'm not 6'4". I'm 6'3".
Okay, so 6'3", but you're also, and I'm a pretty big guy, but like when I met you and stood next to you, I was like, oh, he's a really big guy. Okay, and the average pygmy in
4'6".
4'6"
for the men.
Yeah,
4'6" or 4'7" for the men, and the women are smaller. So whenever I first walked in there, they called me the vanilla gorilla, the albino rhino, you know, different stuff. And I was the Viking in the UFC. I looked like a Viking. I fought like a Viking, ground and pound, pick people up, slam them, and then punches and elbows. And but when I got there, my first name, once I was like really integrated into the community, was Efeosa. And Efeosa means the man who loves us. And that was by the Efe Pygmy people, so Efeosa. And then the Mabuti named me Mabuti Mongbo. So Mabuti Mongbo means the Big Pygmy. And then the Batwa named me Batwa Yakabambi, which means the Big Pygmy as well. And it's been fun to be. It's so weird to even say like, hey, here's this big white dude that became family with a tribe. But it's also been the coolest, most exciting. It's one of the reasons I wake up in the morning. It is the very reason that the first place I got homesick for was there. I was never homesick for anywhere here. And now when I'm there, it's a new feeling because I'm engaged. But I do get homesick for here now, for Amy and her 2 daughters, and for our home together. But it's it's I guess a really unique story. It even is weird to me sometimes. It's like, I could have never dreamed this, planned this, hoped for this, had a vision for this. And what is a fighter doing? Like, one of the side effects of my job was sometimes people would be sent to the hospital, right? And now I'm helping build a hospital. Like, we have 60 people, boots on the ground, like laying the foundation right now, and we're getting ready to put up the walls and the roofs. And you know, it's been a learning process, but I think what I learned through fighting, and maybe this goes to entrepreneurship too, is there's a lot of people that maybe are in the NGO world that they think inside the box. And it's a lot in the box thinking. I don't even know how to say that. It's just a lot of restrictions, a lot of like, we're protective of our programs, we're possessive of who gets credit, and it's got to be done this way. And you can only do one thing, and this is the normal process, system, everything else. But since day one, I think we've been world class at listening to the community. And a lot of times other people don't have the quote unquote time for that. They have, you know, a big quota, a lot of funding. They have a lot of output and reports they have to make. And we've just been like, no, we need to listen to the community first, truly understand what they're going through. There's not just some simple cookie cutter blueprint that can be replicated in every community or country or culture. So we got to listen first and learn. And then once we do that, we can take this collaborative action effort together. But I guess what I was going to say on the part that is different, we want to be a well-rounded organization that is like a fighter. You have to be well-rounded. Like back in the old days of MMA, you could be just a world-class wrestler, just a world-class boxer, just a world-class in jiu-jitsu. Now there's all these hybrid fighters that you have to be basically at least efficient and know the basic offense and foundations, but especially the foundation of good defense in every discipline. The striking, which is boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, it's wrestling, it's jiu-jitsu, it's judo. And so as an organization, we've really tried to fill the gaps on how can we be world-class at being well-rounded to serve one thing, which is poverty, but there's many different solutions and techniques and tactics and game plans for how to string that together, just like in a fight. It is a fight. It's a fight against poverty. It's a fight for the forgotten. And we start with land, then water, then food or farming, then better housing, then healthcare, so medicine when their kids are sick or a safe place to give birth, then education. That's a way that they want, every parent wants their ceiling to be their child's like floor, right? And so, yeah, they see that. And then after that, it's just, or in tandem with all the rest is sustainable livelihoods. We can start that early where we get them into tailoring, beekeeping, hairdressing, barbers, carpentry, welding, masonry, and really try to help support the community with things that who's passionate about this or what's y'all's ideas for a job and livelihoods? Well, we want to do this. Well, do you know how to do that? Well, I kind of know, but I need some more training. Okay, so if we brought in someone for training, who would actually do that and set up a committee? And then people start learning actual vocational skills that go back into the community by boosting their economy and being able to pay for the school fees or pay for the medicine when their kids are sick and things like that. So
love that.
It sounds like a lot, but we're addressing one issue for one people group and one community at a time. But there's lots of different ways to do that.
Well, I think when you're true to your mission, you kind of, I think it was Zig who said, hey, we're going to be firm on principle, but flexible on method. Okay. Because we're going to learn as we go. And I love that. I want to go back and touch on the acceptance piece. So you're in Africa. Okay. You obviously stand out.
Oh yeah,
because you're twice as tall and you look like a Viking and nobody else.
I stand out here. Yeah,
yeah, you do. And it took a while before they did accept you. But what I found, I've been fortunate to travel the world and know people in a lot of different places. And what I found is if people would just rub up against each other, just talk to each other, just break bread, just quit. Don't listen to the news. Don't listen to what our governments say. Just meet people. We're not that different, and we want pretty much the same things. My wife had surgery not too long ago. I have a team of 22 people in Pakistan, and about 2 weeks into her recovery, the primary person I deal with said, hey, I want to share something with you. And I was like, what's that? He's like, we're Muslim. And I'm like, I do. And he said, I know you're Christian. And I'm like, I know you do. And he said, I just want you to know that I and the entire team are praying for your wife's recovery. And so, if you just rub up against people, if you forget what jersey they're wearing or what skin color they're wearing, or if they're 4'6" or 6'3", I think for the most part, you find we're all pretty much the same. There's some outliers, but most of us are pretty much the same. Yeah. We want the same things. We want a life for our kids that starts where we ended. And, hate the part about, your relationship with your dad. I was a single dad and the kids lived with me for a long time. And so I like to think of myself when you ask the boys, maybe it depends on the day, but I like to think of myself as like my picture is next to good dad in the dictionary.
Cool.
And I think I was a really good dad. I'm a horrible mom. Okay. I was no good at that. Okay. But, uh, it's, um, it is a challenge to overcome missing one of those positive parental relationships.
Yeah.
So love this. Justin, if I were to ask you, what's one nugget, so one piece of wisdom you've learned in your life that you'd be willing to share today? What's a nugget of wisdom from the mind of Justin
Mm.
Wren?
It's a nugget of wisdom from me. I would have to defer to a couple of Swahili proverbs, but one that I never share from stage, really. It's just one that I've held on to for me. And it basically says if there is no enemy within, the opponent on the outside can do us no harm.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if there is no enemy within, the enemy on the outside can do us no harm. And for me, having gone through addiction, mental health stuff, or just at times it could seem like self-sabotage or unworthiness issues, or we're trying to control things that are outside of myself. And it's like, man, if I can be centered within, like nothing on the outside really can affect me. And meaning I can walk into situations that aren't the best, uh, but I can have a positive impact in those as long as I'm taking care of my own mental, emotional, spiritual, like health. Um, I can like, there's a saying in recovery that basically like, if you're in fit spiritual condition, you can go anywhere a quote unquote free man can go if you have a good reason to be there. Like, sometimes people in recovery will be like, oh, I can't go to grandma's Thanksgiving because there's going to be a bottle of wine. Or I can't go to the grocery store because they're selling beer. And it becomes this kind of like victim mentality. That's not how it's intended to be at all. If you are actually working on yourself, working a program, have that conscious connection with your higher power, with God, then you can walk into any room for any reason and have an impact. So I go to that because I think that's like the root or the foundation. In the last few months or the last few weeks, I've played Santa 5 times at places, Nashville, Sioux Falls with the mayor up there, all over, right? And people want to take a shot with Santa, and it's like, oh, I'm on duty. It's a busy season. It was a long commute to get here. I got to get home to the workshop and the pole and get ready for Christmas. And I had fun with it, right? Instead of thinking of it as like some sort of chains around me or make it weird and awkward, like it's like no, Santa can get a mocktail and wake up without a hangover in the morning and be ready to tackle the day. So I think on a professional note, man, I think I counted myself out. I think I wanted to have somebody else be the fundraiser. Like I'm kind of the vision, and I want to have my hands on the tools, and I want to be there with the people, and like seeing that more is being asked and required of me to step into fully what we can do as an organization. Like nobody's going to be a better fundraiser than me. That's what Ben has told me over and over, and it's just true. Like I can try to hire a director of development, but they're going to be telling either a lot of my stories or like secondhand stories or different things. Like I would like to grow to a place to where I have help with fundraising. But I can't ever assume like they're going to do it better or than the founder, right? Like I'm the founder, I'm the executive director. It is on me, and stepping fully into that has been good and healthy. And for a while it was unhealthy until I started to learn a little bit of the systems, tools, process of how it works. And for me, if I've just shown how to do it and see someone do it and hear how they do it, then I can normally do it pretty good if I get my hands on it.
Yeah, love that. So, my main business, I help people sell more of whatever they sell. And so selling is really um, natural and easy when you do it right, and can be brutally hard when you do it wrong.
Yeah.
And nobody can ever probably match the founder's performance, but very common for an entrepreneur to reach a point where the visionary, the founder, has to say, if I can find people who can do it 80% as good as me, for us to continue to grow, for me to continue to be on the edge of my comfort zone, which if you're not on the edge of your comfort zone, you're underperforming. If you're not
Right.
a little nervous, you're not getting everything done that probably should be done. Okay. But that takes a little bit of acceptance of, if I can get people who can do it 75, 80% as good as me, I probably need to let them do it. And I need to go on and fulfill my purpose in the role. And very common for founders, startups, bootstrappers, okay, entrepreneurs, they get to a point where it's like, okay, yes, you're the best. And now it's time to let somebody who's not quite as good, we'll get 3. And they'll be 80% as good, and they'll do 2.5 times the volume you did, and you'll be able to continue to lead the organization to where the organization ought to go. So very common. Okay, here's the toughest question. Toughest question I'm going to ask you. All right. I'm going to put you in a time machine.
Okay.
I'm going to send you back to meet 20-year-old Justin. You get like 60 seconds. That's it. I got probably 20 days worth of stuff I'd tell 20-year-old Dawn, okay, if I could, but you only get 60 seconds. So put you in the time machine, you go back, you meet your 20-year-old self, you got 60 seconds to tell your 20-year-old self something that would have been beneficial, something that would have avoided a problem, something that would have sped you toward your purpose. Okay, whatever is that most important thing. I wish, if I could go back, which we can't, I could go back. Here's what I wish I knew then that I know now. So into the time machine you go. Woo, Star Wars. Okay, here's Justin. What do you tell him?
I love you, and I'm proud of who you're going to become. Proud of who you are now, but there's some things you've got to deal with, and it's this addiction. You've got to learn to face it all and feel it all, because when you do that, magic's going to happen. You can't run from it. It's just going to keep catching up with you, and it might kill you. And if you can learn now to love yourself like your life depends on it, because for a guy like you, Justin, it does. But if you learn to love yourself like your life depends on it, like miracles are going to happen in your life and the lives around you. And I would say, like, rise up, overcome. Like, you've overcome 100% of your darkest days. Like, everyone has. But you don't see it that way. And you need to. Because if you can, overcome that stuff, I was going to say another word, colorful. You're going to help others overcome too.
This is a G-rated show.
Yeah.
So thank you. So, hey, folks, that is the big magic. Okay, right there. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, and notice the words that Justin used. He used the word magic. He used the word miracles. And all of those are possible in your life if you just open your mind that they might be possible. So if somebody wanted to reach out to you or Fight for the Forgotten, what's the best way to do that? Is it LinkedIn? Is it the website? What's the easiest way to do that?
The website is fightfortheforgotten.org. If that seems too long to spell out, just think of Fight for the Forgotten being FFTF or Frank Tango Frank.org. And you can follow me on Instagram. It's at the Big Pygmy, PYGMY. And you can also hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm starting to try to use that more. I only started using it in 2024. But it's just Justin Wren on LinkedIn. And then you can follow our social media at Fight for the Forgotten on Instagram, Facebook, things like that. We're going to be having a lot more exciting updates. People will be seeing the hospital being built, the school, the community hub, the vocational workshop, the staff houses, and seeing them getting to work, them being active in their own rescue, which is awesome, and them being a solution to their very own local problems and being built up in ways that they wanted, asked for, and are active in.
Love that. Justin Wren, thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm grateful.
I'm so grateful too. I feel lucky.
That's today's episode of the Proven Entrepreneur Show, and we'll see you next time.